In this video, let's compare the OnePlus Nord N200 5G with the Samsung Galaxy A02s. Let's go ahead and get started. So the N200 is the cheapest 5G phone from OnePlus, coming in at $240 or free if you're on Metro by T-Mobile when you port your number. Versus the Samsung Galaxy A02s, you can get it for really cheap. You can get it for under $100 if you're on prepaid, or you can get it for less than $200 unlocked without a contract. So these are two really budget devices. So the big difference is one has 5G versus the other one has LTE, but let's get into that in a little bit. So the overall size of N200 is, it has a height of 6.4 inches, around 3 inches wide, 0.33 inches thick. The A02s is 6.4 inches tall, 3 inches wide, 0.36 inches thick. So very similar size on both of these phones. The N200 weighs 6.6 ounces. You got 6.9 ounces on the A02s, so a little bit heavier, just a tiny fraction on the Samsung. Build quality will be almost the same: glass front, plastic back, plastic frame on both of these phones, but that's expected at this lower price point. The N200 is a dual SIM phone, while the Galaxy A02s, depending on your market, it'll be a dual SIM. Now for the displays, they both have a 6.5-inch display, but the N200 has a 90 Hz refresh rate, which is really nice. The resolution on both of these are different. The 1080p resolution on the N200, so that's full HD, which gets you 406 ppi density, which is very nice. Galaxy A02s has a lower resolution at 720 HD, which brings it down to 270 ppi density. So between these, the N200 has a better screen overall. As for software, N200 has Android 11 with Oxygen OS 11 on top. It's a close to stock version of Android with a few tweaks here and there, and it'll only get one major update to Android 12. Samsung, on the other hand, had launched with Android 10. It's upgradable to Android 11 with Samsung One UI on top, which has its own feel. A lot of people like these Samsung's UI software nowadays, but it has a lot of features and a lot of customizable things that you can do with it. And a lot of people like that. It has its own unique feel. And Samsung is doing a better job of upgrading the software to these, so expect this phone to get a few upgrades in the near future. For the chipset, the N200 has a Snapdragon 480 5G processor. A Galaxy has the Snapdragon 450 processor. You're not going to notice too much difference in these both of these are lower end processors. They won't blow your mind in performance, but they'll get the job done and run all your favorite apps with minimal distractions, minimal slowdowns and stuff like that. But it'll run all your major apps depending how big it is. But both of these phones aren't going to be good for heavy intensive gaming or heavy video editing, but they'll get the job done. Next is the internal storage. The N200 comes in with 64 gigs. The Samsung comes in a lot of different variants of internal storage, range from 16 to 32 to 64. But for the most part, most of these will be in the 32 or 64 gig category, depending where you get it from. But both of these phones are going to get a micro SD card slot, which is nice. You can expand the storage on the fly as you wish. As for RAM, it's also going to vary, but the N200 will get 4 gigs of RAM, which is more than enough for most people. On the other hand, the Samsung will get, again, it will depend on which one you get it from, where you get it from. It's 1 gig or 3 gigs or 2 gigs of RAM. I would highly suggest not to avoid the 1 or 2 gigs of RAM. If you get the 3 gigs of RAM version, that'll be totally fine. That version will be probably the minimum amount of RAM that I would recommend for most people. In the camera department, the N200 has 3 cameras: 13 megapixel main camera, 2 megapixel macro, 2 megapixel depth. The A02s has a 13 megapixel main camera, 2 megapixel macro, 2 megapixel depth. So very similar setup on both of these phones, and they both turn out video at 1080p, so they're closely tied. These cameras won't blow you away. They aren't a flagship. They're both gonna suck at night for night shots, but if you're in the right lighting conditions, you'll take some nice video and nice pictures. For the selfie cameras, the N200 has a 16 megapixel shooter shooting at 1080p. Galaxy A02s has a 5 megapixel selfie camera, which I assume as well has 1080p as well. Both of these phones have a headphone jack, which is nice. That's something that is a bonus for budget phones. It competes with the flagships because flagships don't have them anymore, the headphone jack. So it's a good win for both of these phones. As for wireless connectivity, the N200 has Bluetooth 5.1, Galaxy has 4.2 Bluetooth, which is an older version, but both of these will happily connect to your wireless devices such as a smartwatch, smartband, wireless headphones, wireless speakers. You got NFC on the N200, that's mostly reserved for payments. You don't get that on the Galaxy. Both of these phones have USB Type-C port for charging. Another big difference between these phones is security and unlocking. You get a fingerprint reader, a side-mounted one on the N200. You don't have any type of fingerprint or physical way to unlock your device. You have to put in that passcode. So that's a big factor in making your decision between these. So it's a big win for the N200. Now, last but not least is the battery life, and I'm happy to say that both of these are tied. They both have a big, huge 5,000 milliamp battery, and they both offer fast charging. You got 18 watts on the N200, 15 watts on the Samsung Galaxy, and that's probably one of the most important features in a cell phone. And luckily, both of these have it. These compete very good. They'll last you 1, 2, 3 days at a time, depending on your usage, and these will blow away even flagship devices that have smaller batteries. And you pair that with the lower end processors on these, battery life will be awesome no matter what. So what are my thoughts after comparing both of these and going through the specs and whatnot? Well, the N200 comes out on top. It's a very value-driven device, especially if you want a 5G device. It has all the right things to make it feel like a more expensive phone. You got that stock version of Android, really stock. It has a 90 hertz refresh rate, has a higher full HD display resolution. It has just a lot of things going for it. It has a micro SD card slot, it has a headphone jack, and it has that fingerprint reader. Compare that to the Samsung Galaxy. I mean, it is a lower end device, but you're more than likely the unlock price is way lower than the N200, even though it has LTE. For a lot of people, 5G doesn't matter that much. So if that's not important to you, the Samsung Galaxy will be right up your alley. It's gonna get a few updates, which is good. Samsung's trying their best, and that 5,000 milliamp battery, it's gonna push it far. It's gonna be right on par. One of the most important things in the battery, in the phone, is good battery life. So if you're able to get the Nord N200 for free on prepaid, then go ahead and take advantage of that. But the overall winner will be the OnePlus. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.